So let's now start taking care of the edit profile. So to that, I think we should, for example, create a new item here when we are logged in. So for example, I'm logged in. Let's create here a new item called account or something. So let's start by creating a new Auth folder here. Inside the Auth folder, let's create it called edit, or let's call it just profile. So profile, and the new file, profile.js. This will be a React arrow function component. We can already import the connect here because we will need it. What can we import more? We can import our formic, right? And the field, because we will need the forms, because here on the edit profile we'll need a form, right, to edit user data. And what can we edit? Import more. We can import our form from formic, but we styled it here, right? So we can import styled form if form wrapper. So let's import form wrapper styled form from, and it's on our iOrder components, and some things doesn't make change now to be here, like the form shouldn't be here, stuff like that, but I'm just going to leave it. So here we need to render a form, right? So let's start by render the form wrapper. You can actually go to our sign up component because it will be very similar, right? We will have a form to edit our profile that will be very similar to the sign up, right? So I'm going to copy this formic just to formic. So formic, I'm going to copy all of it and I'm going to paste it here just to get the form going. So return. I'm going to paste the form here. We can already also import styled from styled components. We can import our message from, and this is from our components /UI/message. Can also pass this down here. What can we import more? We can copy since we are using the wrapper here too. We can copy this, and we are using this wrapper like a lot of times. We should put it in our elements here, but I'm just gonna leave it here. But we could like extract this wrapper to our elements, and here is not styled. Okay. What can we do more? So we have our form here. We can copy our sign up schema too. So let's go to our sign up. We can copy this schema. Let's paste it here and let's call it maybe profile schema. Let's pass it here. We need to import the YOP verification, so import everything as YOP from YOP. And let's see, what are we missing? So we have our form with our initial values clear. Here on the submit, we want to edit the profile here, not now though. Okay, so we have to import our heading too. So let's import, and I'm going to duplicate this, and it's under UI/heading/heading, and here it's heading. Okay, we need to import our input component too. So let's import. Here it's under form/input, and this here is input. Okay, so what are we missing? We have our input. Oh, we need to import the button too, the loading we will just comment for now. And the error, we might as well comment it for now. So comment it out. Okay, so here we can change this to edit. Let's import our button, and then we should have everything we need. Where is our button? Under forms, button. Okay, button. Let's see. Okay, looks good. Let's now render this route. So let's go to our app, and this only makes sense to render when the user is logged, right? And with the email verified, in my opinion. So here we can say profile, and it will be rendered on the path profile, and we need to import our profile container. So import profile from containers, auth, profile, containers, auth, profile. Can't resolve button in profile. So what are we doing wrong? So we are importing our button from, what's wrong here? Oh, I need it's button is a folder, and here too. Okay, now should be working. Okay, we are rendering our route in our slash profile. So let's now go to our nav items. So let's go to our nav items, and if it's logged in, we can render our file. So let's copy and paste here, and let's call it file, and we'll go to profile. Let's call this account or something. Okay, so now we are logged in, we have our account, we click, we have our form, right? Let's change this here. So edit your profile. Here you can edit your profile. Okay, so now let's start filling this data here with our data, right? So we are logged in. We only access this when we are logged in. So we can start populating these fields with our own data that we have here on Firebase, auth, profile, if you remember, right? And the email you have to here, and the password, it doesn't make sense that we fill it. What makes sense to do is when the user doesn't touch, so when the user doesn't have a password, we should still let him submit the form, and we only update the first name, the last name, and the email. And when the user actually writes something here, is that only when the user writes something on the password field, we should update the password. So let's do that next. Now that we have our form here, we can start to populate this data with the data that we have on our store, right? So what we can do is, we already imported connect here. So let's now use our two map state to props and map dispatch to props. Okay, here we have access to our Firebase, right? Because the data we want to access is here on Firebase. And what we can say, we can just dispatch, map the Firebase. Now what we can do is we can pass it here. Let's connect our container to our Redux store, and now we get access to this Firebase object here on our props, and destructor it. And now what we can do is, since we have this data here, we can say the first name is on Firebase, auth, no, not auth, profile. Let's see, I don't remember. So Firebase, oh, it's on auth and Firebase. No, it's firebase.profile.firstname. Okay. So firebase.profile.firstname. Let's copy this. Now the last name is here. So last name, and the email is on firebase.auth.email. So firebase.auth.email, and the password and the confirm password, we'll always leave it blank. And now if we reload our page, we are getting our email, but we are not getting our first name and last name. Let's find out why. So Firebase profile, first name, last name, first and last. Okay, we are not getting the values at first, because you can see when we reload the page, we have to wait. You see that you have to wait for this action that it's from that package that will set our profile. And you can see here in the Firebase profile, you can see is loaded true, but initially it will be false, okay, because it's not loaded. So we can use that to, what we can basically do is, here before we return, we can say if there isn't a firebase.profile.is loaded, we can return. So basically, if it's not loaded, we will return, and when it's loaded, it will make our component re-render again, and it should work now. So let's see. Oh, of course, we need to return something, so return null. Okay, now it's working. First, we return null, and then this set profiles populates our profile here. This changes to is loaded to true, and then we have this data. So now what we can do is, first of all, we can go here, and the password is not required, right? This is not required because the user might update his profile without changing the password. Okay, so we shouldn't make the user this field required. And now the confirm password, it should be required, right? But only when password has something, correct? Because if we leave it like this and you want to update your profile, right? And you try to submit it, this will not be required, but this will be required. And if you remove it, then you could submit with only this field, right? So what we can do, and again, Yup is amazing because of this. So you can say when, and then this is a function where you pass the reference to the field you want to reference. So when password, and then here, comma, and you can make an object here. Okay, and on this object you can say is, and then this is a function that will get the value from this. So what's stored inside this field we will get here as a function. So we can say, for example, password, you can name it whatever you want. So you can say when password, you get the password here on this function, and then when password dot length is greater than 0, right? And then you make another key, so then, and then is when you let's cut this here, and then you do yup dot, and then here you do your normal verifications like we have been doing. Okay, so let's go over it again, and you can read the yup documentation for this. Again, it's amazing. So the password is not required, you can submit without it, and the confirm password, when password, and then here is you can you write an object, and inside that object you have several fields already defined by Yup, and what you do is you use the is, and then here is a function. So you can conditionally do stuff here. You can verify several things, but on this function you get the reference to the value that is here, right? So when password and then this is a function that will get the value from this. So when the password, and then you say when the password dot length is greater than 0, then you will kick in this verification. Okay, and let's see if this is working. So for example, let's console log here the values. So console.log the values. Now let's go to our form again. We should be able to submit it like this, right? Because we didn't fill anything here. So let's submit. And we are not able to submit. Why? Oh, right. So the form isn't valid here because Formic makes this automatically. So it doesn't make sense for the form to be valid if you don't change anything. So right now, it doesn't make sense that you can submit this because you didn't change anything. So if I make it like this, it will work. So now it's valid, right? Because we didn't fill this here. So let's see, it was logged the values. We still get here our empty password, but that doesn't matter. And now if you fill this, okay, now the validation kicks in, you see? So if you fill this, now this is required. Now, okay, so now this is working. So when this length, when the length of the field of whatever you typed on password is greater than 0, then this validation kicks in. Okay, so now this is working. Let's start working on our reducer and on our action creator to edit our profile. Now that we have our form set up, getting our data, let's actually start working on our reducers. Okay, so let's go to our action types here, and let's copy this again, and let's create let's make this profile edit. Okay, so one to start, so we set the loading to true, one to success, and one to fail. We can close this. We can go to our auth reducer. So auth reducer, and here we can again copy and paste this, and here we can say profile edit, and error and loading seems okay to me. We can also on our clean function already clean the errors from here. So here we are just cleaning the error. So profile edit will be a new object. We spread the old object, loading false, error null. And now let's work on our actions, and we will refactor this reducer later. Before we start working with the to-dos. So for to-dos we will have another reducer here, and before doing that we will refactor this. Okay, so let's just now actions dot profile start, and this will return new object where we spread the old object, and then you go to verify email, and here will be a new object that will spread the old object, and we'll say the loading is true, correct. And now we can actually copy and paste this 2 times, but now here is success, and on success the loading is false, and error false, and here is fail, and on the fail the loading is false anyways. Oops, so the loading is false, and the error is the payload, right? Payload. So our reducer looks good. Let's now start working on our action. So we can go to auth actions, and right at the bottom we can say so edit profile, and here we can say export const edit profile. Here we get the data from our form, right? And then we return another function that gets the dispatch, the get state, and we destructor the get Firebase, and here we need the get Firestore too. Remember, because we will be editing the first and the last name, and these two items are on our Firestore, and this is on our Firebase. Okay, so we destructor them here, and then here we can already say const Firebase equals to get Firebase, and we can duplicate this, and here is get Firestore, and this will save on Firestore. And then here we can say try, and here we will edit the user profile, and then if something goes wrong we catch error, and you are already seeing this is always the same thing. So here we dispatch an action with the type of actions.edit profile fail, and on the payload you set the r.message, and we can copy this, and before starting any of this we can dispatch the start, so edit start, and here after we successfully edit the profile we dispatch the success, so success. Okay, so let's now update the user profile. Okay, and now I'm here on the Firebase documentation, and you can see that you have a method to update the email of a user, and to do that you go get the current user from the firebase.auth object. Okay, so let's do that. So here we can say const user equals firebase.auth.current user. And now sometimes the user might only change the name and the last name, right? But we will still receive his email, if you can see here. So what we can do is we have this get state function here, and this function basically gives you access to the whole store. And in your store here you have the user emailed, right? So if you go to state auth Firebase and auth, you have your email. So what you can do is you can say const user email equals to get state, and this will give you your whole store. So get state, and then after this Firebase, and then auth, and then email, right? And what we can say here is if the data.email is different than the user email, then we enter here, right? Because if the mail that comes from the form is different than the one that you already have, then we enter here. And then here is when we can basically update this profile. So we say user update email, so we can say await, and then we have the user here, the current user, update email, and we pass in the data. So you pass in the data.email, right? And to use await here we need to mark this function as asynchronous. And now we need to change our Firestore, right? We need to change our Firestore. And what you can do is you can also access the user ID, and you need the user ID to go into our Firestore here. If you remember, we need to go into our Firestore, and you need to find the collection with the user ID you are logged in and update it, right? So you need to go to our database users, and then you need to find user ID here. So what you can do is we need to get our user ID. So, and this will be equal to state get state dot firebase dot auth dot UID, I think. Let's see here. State Firebase auth UID, correct. And I just close VS Code. Awesome. Okay, so UID, and you can see that we are actually getting these two variables from the same Firebase auth object, right? So what we can do is we can destructure them. Okay, so we can say UID and user email, actually email equals to get state dot auth dot nothing, just dot auth, and then you will get the properties with the name email and UID from the get state auth object, and you can rename them. So you can say user ID will be user ID and email will be user, so user email, like this. Okay, and then we can remove this, and then you have your user ID variable and your user email, and then here we can compare it, right? So now let's update our Firestore, and to do this we can say just await Firestore, and then await Firestore, and then it's just like we did in the beginning. So collection users, users, and then you select the doc with your user ID, right? Because we get the current user ID here, right? We destructed the UID from our store and on the auth and store it on the user ID const, and then we say dot set, and then it's an object here, and we say that the first name will be equal to data dot first name, and the last name will be equal to data dot last name, right? We're basically updating our Firestore with the values that come from our form. Okay, and this should be working. Let's see if it is working. We still need to edit the password actually. So what we can do is say if there is a password, so if the data dot password that length is greater than 0, then we need to update the password. And to update the password, let's go to our Firebase documentation and let's say password, set a user password. And we already have this, our current user, so we just need to execute user.update. We need to await for the user update password, and the new password will be on data.password. Right, so we have our action creator that will edit our user. So you get data from the form, the first name, last name, the email, and the password might be empty or not. We get our Firebase and Firestore objects. We get our current logged in user. We get the UID and the email from our global state. So from here on the get state auth, and this is actually wrong, it's not auth. So the UID and the email are inside Firebase auth, not auth only, because auth, get state auth only, it's this object here, right? So this is Firebase. So we get UID and email from Firebase auth, so UID and email. We destructor them, and we store them on the user ID and the user email variables respectively, and here it's not a capital M. And then we dispatch the action to start the profile edit, so the loading will be set to true. If the email that comes on from the form is different than the one that the user is already using, we update it. Otherwise we'll not update it, because it doesn't make sense that we keep updating the email if the email is the same. Then we go into our Firestore on the collection users on the document with the user ID. So here you'll find the user ID of the current logged user. And if it's not there, it will just add it, okay? And then we'll set the first name. So here the first name will be equal to the values that come from the form. And then if the form gives us a password and that password is greater than 0, so if the length of the password is greater than 0, we use this user.update password to update the password. And if everything goes okay, we dispatch the action with a success. If something goes wrong, it will be catched here and will be dispatched to. So now let's get this action creator in our container and let's run it when the user submits the form, and let's show our successful error message and our loaders. So now that we have our action creator, we can take it, let's export it here, don't forget. So export it here. Let's go to our container. We can close this. We go to our container profile. Here we are already passing state2 props. Now we need to dispatch an action, and we need to import the actions. So import everything as actions from, and we go 1 up, 2 up, 3 up, store / actions, and then we can say that edit profile will be equal to actions dot edit profile. Then we pass that here as the second argument. And then we have access to this here on our props here. And we also need access to the loading states and the error, remember, because we are only passing the Firebase here, but we also need to destructure our auth part of our state, remember, because we are saving the errors here on our auth profile edit. So let's destruct the auth, and let's just say loading, it's on auth.profile edit.loading, and the error will be on auth.profile edit.error. So profile edit. And we could improve this, for example, here in our actions, instead of this being this long action. So we could, for example, make a small action to just update the email, another action to just update the first name and last name, and another action to just update the password, and call them here. And each action would have its own state here, for example. So profile edit, and inside you could have password and email and details. And then you could have, for example, several errors, because right now, if the password if the emails gives an error, it will just stop, right? And the only error you will get is this one. But if you dispatch here 3 different actions, and each one take cares of their errors, you could, for example, display several errors here, right? But I don't think this is necessary for this app. So now we have our loading and our error here. So now we can get our loading and our error. And now we can run the edit profile here. Instead of console logging the values, you can run this, pass in the values, and then we can uncomment this message. So uncomment, and the loading we can also uncomment, and we can say editing, and we also can copy the successful message from here, for example. So let's just copy this. And then here we can just also render a successful message, and it's when the error is equal to false 2, and we can say profile was updated. Okay, and let's see if this is working right now. It should be. So, all right. I need to start my project again because I closed my browser before. npm run start. And let's now see if everything is working. Let's open our Redux so we can have a look at our actions. Okay, so let's now make this. Let's edit. Okay, there was an error. Let's see what the error was. Function collection reference undefined. Okay, so I just restarted my server and it started working. So I don't know. We have all of the same. The email is different. It will update. We will update our Firestore. We update our password if it exists. And now, for example, Hidalgo dev edit. We see that edit start and edit success. On edit start, it made our loading true. Our button is not changing though, so let's go to our profile. Our profile edit, pass it our loading. If it's loading, we pass, oh, we need to await here. Auth.profile. So why is our loading not working? Oops, we are changing the wrong on our reducer here. So if you go to our reducer here, yeah, and this is the problem when we copy and paste. So the profile edit start here it's not the verify email, right? It's the profile edit, and here it's the profile edit everywhere. Okay, on our reducer, when we dispatch the profile edit start, we want to change the profile edit like so. So now it's working. Editing, profile was updated. So editing, profile was updated. We refresh, still here. So if we go to our state, Firebase profile, it should be updated. So let's write now Fidalgo YouTube, for example. Profile was updated. If we come to our Firestore, here Fidalgo YouTube, it changed. Let's now try to change the email to something random. Okay, this operation is sensitive, so to do this we need to log out and log in again. Okay, and now let's, for example, change the password from 123 until 8. Let's add a 9, so 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9. Now the password should change, and the profile was updated, so it's working. Let's now try to change the email, and if I try to change the email, because I logged in recently, I should be able to do it. Okay, so it was updated, and now I received an email on my old email. This is a Firebase security measure, so when you change the email, you always get an email on the current email to verify that you actually changed your email. Now another thing that we should do is run our cleanup function, otherwise if we go from here to here, this message will still be here. So we can go to our profile, we can import here our cleanup, and it's on actions.clean, and now we can get it here, and we can import the use effect here. Now after on our component we can use it, so use effects on the return function that will run when the component unmounts. We run our cleanup. Okay, now it should be working. Let's try to okay, now we need to verify our email because I just changed my email. So I'm just going to go to my email and say that I didn't ask for a change. So I didn't. Okay. Okay. I refuse to change my email. So now if I logged in, I should be verified. Okay. And now I should be able to update my profile. It was updated. I should be able to go here. Cleanup was run. Message was clear. Okay. So now we can edit our profile. We can edit the first name, the last name. You can change our email. You can change your password. So now let's make the user be able to delete his account. So now to delete the user profile, what we should do is we should create a modal that will open. For example, let's put a link here saying delete user, and when we click that, we pop-up will open, right? So a modal will open. So for that, let's go to our components, and under UI let's create a folder called modal. Inside this folder I will create another folder called backdrop, and the backdrop will just be like a black background that will appear behind the modal. Okay, so backdrop.js, and this will be a function component. Let's import styled from styled components, and this will get the open state, so if it's opened or not, and a click event. And the click event will just be to close the model when you click on the black background, basically. So you will get that in a second. So let's style. Let's just call it wrapper, and this will be a style.div that will basically be width 100%, height 100 viewport height, height, opacity, and now the opacity will depend. So let's create a function here that will get the opened. So opened, my god, opened, and if it's opened, the opacity will be 1, otherwise will be 0. We can just copy this. So here we're missing a comma, I mean a quote, and now the visibility, if it's opened, it will be visible, otherwise it will be hidden. Now transition all 0.1 second. Okay, now let's just render the wrapper component. Now we can say that the position of this will be fixed, right? So fixed, top 0, left 0, and let's say that the background colors, and this can be RGBA 000.4 for now. We'll tweak that later. So basically a fixed div, right? That has that is black and has some opacity to it. What am I missing? What's wrong here? Why are you giving me an error? Top 0, left 0, position fixed. Okay, there is no error. It's because my PC is slow because I'm recording. So we have this this backdrop, and we are just returning it, right? So now inside here we will create a new file called model.js, and now here we will use something called a portal. And what a portal is, basically it will allow us to render instead of us running our div inside this root div, and inside we don't know how many components we might have, we can create a div ID here called root root model. Okay, and with a portal we can render our model here. Okay, so let's do that next. On our model we will receive if the model is opened or not too, and we will receive our children. Okay, we can already import styled from styled components. We can style our model. So let's make styled wrapped model will be equal to a style.div. Then now we can make position fix of the model. So let's center the model on the screen. So we can make width 100%, max width, let's make it 700%. I mean 70 RAM, not percent, not 770. We can make it also display. Let's center it first, so we can say top 50%, and say left 50%. We can center it now with transform, translate, -50%, -50%. This will center our div because it has a position fixed. We can use display flex. We can use align items center and justify content center to center it. Let's make shadow. We can use 0, 0.5 rem, 5 rem, and we have a shadow for this on our CSS. So shadow. Okay, let's make a border radius of 5 rem, and let's use a background color of, let's use our color main for now. So color main. Okay, now here to create a model and render it on that div we just created on our public that div here. Okay, what we do is here instead sorry, instead of returning just your JSX, you do return React dot, and now create portal. And then this is a function, and on the first argument you render your component, so like this, and on the second argument you pass in your document. Okay, so your selector. So get elements by ID, and it's root. Okay, and actually here we need to pass in our children, right? So whatever comes the model to show, children. Okay, and now we can pass the state of the Openness to our styled component, and here we can basically, let's just make opacity for now. So opacity, we will get a function here where we will get the Openness, and if it's Openness we set the opacity to 1, otherwise set the opacity to 0. We can duplicate this, we can visibility, visible if it's opened, otherwise hidden. We can make a transition all 0.1 seconds, visibility. Okay, it looks good to me. We pass in the open. Now we need to render here our backdrop too, right? So let's import backdrop from the same folder. So backdrop, right? And here we can render the backdrop here. We need to wrap this in a fragment. Okay, let's get this here. We need to pass in if our backdrop is opened too, right? And we need to pass it here to our style component so it behaves accordingly. Okay, so on our model to our backdrop we say opened equals opened. Okay, and this is looking good to me. Let's now test this here. So let's import model from components UI slash model slash model. And now here let's first render it just open it. Okay, so after we have our form. Let's just render it here for now, and let's pass it the opened. Let's make it open it now. Okay, we need to create a state here in this component to see that will basically change when we click on the delete account here. So we click on delete account, we have a state on this component that will make the model open it. But for now let's test it, and I'll say this is a model. Now we are returning this here. We need to wrap this in a fragment. So all of this needs to be wrapped in a fragment. Okay, looking good to me. Okay, let's see if it's working. Not working. So what's React.create portal is not a function. Of course it's not a function, it's not React. it's React DOM, right? So we are rendering to the DOM here, so it's React DOM, React DOM. What's wrong here? What? What was wrong? Port? Oh, I need the from. My God. And now here it's not React, it's React DOM create portal. Let's see if it's working. Okay, and it's working. We have our div here. We need to change the z index of it. So z index, make it 999. Let's make it work. Okay, and now our backdrop, let's make it the index 100. Wait, our model is not being rendered, the root model. It is being rendered, the root still. Why? Oh, it's not root. It's model root. It's root model. Oh my God. Root model. Now it should be working. Okay, now why are you behind the backdrop still? Why are you behind? Wait, it's not behind it. Is it behind the backdrop? No, it's not behind the backdrop. It's working. Okay. So now we have our model and we have our backdrop, which should be a little bit dark in my opinion. So 7, and here let's make our model from another color. So let's make a main light, for example. So main light. So here background color, main light. Okay, so we have our model. Let's now make this model open or closed based on state of this component. Okay, before working on the styles, I changed the background color of the backdrop to opacity 0.7 here. I think the model is also a little bit too wide, so the max width, I will change it maybe to 50. Okay. Okay, better. Now let's give it some padding, so maybe 4 RAM, 3 RAM. Okay. What can we do more here? That border radius is just absurd. Even this is too much, maybe 1. Okay. And why did it come down now? What the hell? Oh yeah, it's minus 50. Okay, I want the color of the model to be even lighter, so let's see. I might change the colors later. Just let's see how this works. Okay, we'll have to do for now. Okay, I don't like it, but it will have to do for now. So what we can do now is let's create a state here in our, let's actually close this and this and this for now. Close this, all of this. So now here we can import use state, right? And what we can do here is inside our component here, we can have use state and we can say model opened, and initially it will be false, and we can already pass this down, so this model will only be opened according to the model opened, right? And on the model we also should receive the closed, a function to close the model, which will be set model opened, right? So here the close will be a callback function that will set the state of this to false. Okay, and now we can use this here. Wait, what did I call it? Close. So we can get this function callback here, and we can pass it to the backdrop. Okay, and now on our backdrop we get the closed instead of the click, and what we can say is every time we click on this wrapper it will close. It will change the state to is opened false. Okay, so when we click on this backdrop, so on this black around it, it will change this state here to false. Okay, and now for testing we can just, for example, make something here. So let's make a p, and let's say delete my account. Let's on click we will set model opened to true. Okay, oops, and click. What's wrong? Here a div. What? Oh, I have this p here. What's here? Oh, I deleted something. I'm just going to Control Z here. Deleted that. Should be working now. Still not working. Why? Oh, this is the fragment. Okay, so on click now here, the function callback that will basically, it's this that I just pasted here. So when we click on this p, it will set the state of the model to true. We will pass it down to the model and it will open it. Okay, so see, and now it's opened, so the state here is true, so the model is opened, and we pass a function callback to change this to false when we click on the backdrop. So now if we click here outside, it should close it, and it closed it. Now we open and we close it. Okay, so now we have this model. Let's style this link a bit and let's pass content inside it. Okay, so let's now style this. So I'm just going to do it on this container itself. We could extract it for in an element maybe here, but I'm just going to do it here. So const and we can say const delete wrapper can be a styled that. And it can be a div, and it can be cursor pointer, right? Pointer color var Earhart color Earhart red, if I'm not mistaken. And count 1.3 RAM. We can make transition all 0.2 seconds. can make on over transform translate y minus 3 pixels missing non-deactive active, can make it go down. Okay, we can wrap that message on with this div. So here we can wrap this message. Okay, let's make the font height bold. So font height 700. Okay, let's see. Okay, looks good. Maybe we can a little margin top of 2 rem or something. I don't know. Looking decent. So now we can animate this model a bit. Let's make it maybe come from the top or something. So we can go to our model, and what we can say is we can basically copy this, right? And actually, yeah, we can paste this here, and basically we want, if it's opened, we want it to be at the center. Otherwise, we want it to be a little bit to the top. So basically, the transform, when it's opened, it's -50, -50. When it's closed, it's -50, -80. So it should come from the top now. And you can see it comes from the top. You can see when it's closed, the model is -80. You can make it like minus, I don't know, if you want the effect to be bigger, you can do -150 maybe. And you can see it comes from the top. Okay, so we have a nice effect. We have our model. When we click on the outside, it closes. Now let's pass content to it, to something like, do you really want to delete your account? And 2 buttons, we can render here 2 buttons. If the user clicks delete, it will run an action creator that will delete it. If the user clicks cancel, it will just close the pop-up. So let's go, we can close our backdrop. Let's go to our profile here. Here we can pass, I'm just going to duplicate an heading from here. I'm going to duplicate these 2 headings, and I'm going to pass them here. And I'm just going to say, do delete your account. I'm going to say, do you really want to delete your account? See how this looks. Okay, we need to make the model. Display flex should be, let's flex direction column. Okay, delete your account. You really want to delete your account. And now let's render 2 buttons here. We can reuse the same buttons that use here. So this button, we can reuse it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a wrapper here, buttons wrapper, which I will create as a style component in a second. And I'm just going to render 2 buttons here. Okay, I'm going to remove the type submit because it will not be type submit, and I'm going to render here delete, and here I'm going to render cancel, and the loading here will be nothing. Yeah, the disabled, it can be disabled when we are running our action creator. Exactly. So, but for now, this we can delete from here because it's the cancel button. If you cancel, it will just close the pop-up, but this we can leave it here and reuse. Let's just comment it out. This will be a style component, so And actually, let's make it under this one. So const style, oops, buttons wrapper will be style div, which we will make display flex with 100%, and we can make justify content, we can make it space slash around. Oops, space around. What's wrong here? Oh, can't be inside. Okay. With. Okay, now we have this wrapper which will wrap our two buttons so they can be like this. Do you see? So now what we can do is we can reuse this button. So let's improve this button component. Right now it's always 100%, right? And it has no margin, and we don't want to give it always margin, because otherwise, for example, here it will have margin and that will not look good. So we will pass it a prop to add margin when we want, basically. So let's do that next. So let's improve our button and let's go to our UI forms button, and here we can receive a property, let's call it maybe contain, to contain the button when we want, instead of being 100% width. So we can say contained equal to contained, and here we can say that the width we will get the contain, so contain, and if it's contain we will make it with auto, otherwise we will make it 100%. Okay, and what's wrong here? Okay, this function. Okay, let's also increase the padding. Wait, what's wrong here? You don't need this. So everything is looking good to me. Why are you complaining? We get the contain from the function. Oh yeah, it's just my slow computer. Okay, and now what we can do is, in this case, we want the buttons not to expand 100%, right? Here on the model, inside the model, so we can just pass contain to both of them. So contain. See, works. Okay, they are contained. I think we should give them more padding. Maybe let's give 5 RAM. Let's see. Okay, looking good to me. Let's also do something about the colors, and let's make the cancel button close the model. So what we can do is, this button already receives the rest here, so we can pass an on-click event that will basically render in the button. So we can say on click will be callback function that when executed will set is set model Openness to false. Let's see if this works. Working. Why? Is not capital letter. It's working now. Okay, now if you click outside it closes. If you click on cancel it closes. Let's also change the colors of our buttons. So let's go to our button. Gets, what does it get? Okay, we can receive the color too, and we can pass the colors to our style component. And now we still want this color to be the main color, so I'm just going to duplicate this, and now here we can write JavaScript. We get a function with the color. Now we can say color. Let's actually make if color equals, so if color equals to red, the return var color error red. Else if, let's say, color equals to main, return var color main. Else return, and it's this one here. Okay, let's see if it's working. It should be. We need quotes here. Okay, and now if the color is equal to red, we return this. Else if the color equals to main, we return this, and else we return this. Why are you complaining here? So if we say color main, okay, we get the main color, and here if we say color red, should render with background from our, okay, looks good to me. Not really, but yes, it will do for now. So now we have this styled, we can cancel. Let's just start creating our reducer to handle actions about the delete accounts. Then we can create our action creator that will be run when we click on cancel. So let's start working on our delete user actions and reducer and all of that. So we can start by creating on our reducer. We can start by creating new object called delete user. Oh, oops. Not, yeah, it can, we can already do it here. This is the cleanup. So we can clean up this, even though it's not really necessary. Okay, let's initialize it here. So we have our initial state that we'll have now a delete user. We'll save loading, so when it's deleting and if there occurred any error, we are already clearing this error when we run this cleanup function. And what can we do more here? We can create our action types. So let's copy this, paste this. And here it doesn't make sense that we dispatch a delete success, right? Because if it successes, the user will be logged out automatically and it will be redirected to the home. So it does make sense. Yeah, if it fails. Yeah, right. Okay. So now what we can do is we can go here to our reducer and we can say case actions dot delete start. So delete start. We will return and we spread the state, and we go to delete user and we create a new object. We spread the previous and we say that the loading will be true. Then we can copy paste this and delete fail, right? Fail. and the loading will be false, and the error will be on the payload. So this is done. We can now start creating our action. So let's go to our auth actions, delete user, and will be const call delete user. We don't need to get any data here because it will be the currently logged in user that will be deleted. So here sync, we get dispatch, the get state, and we can get Firebase and get Firestore. We also need a Firestore here because we want to delete the user from our Firestore, right? And now we can say const Firebase equals to get Firebase, const Firestore equals to get Firestore. Now we can try to delete it, catch error. If it fails, here we can dispatch the action of the type actions dot delete fail. We can also dispatch the delete start here. Okay, this is looking good. Now here we can actually delete the user, and to delete the user, what we can do is, so we can say const user and we get the current user like we did before. So firebase dot auth dot current user, and now you can get the user ID to delete that document from the Firebase. So user ID, and now here we go to our get state dot firebase dot auth dot uid, right? Now we can say await user dot delete, and we can also say await Firestore, and to delete we go to the collection of users, to the doc of the user ID, and we simply delete. Okay, so now we delete user from our Firebase authentication, and then we delete it from our Firestore. And this should be working. We can export this. So let's go to our index. Let's export this here. Now we can go to our profile. We can have access to that here. So here we can say delete user, and this is on actions dot delete user. Now we can say loathing delete, right? This will be on auth dot delete user dot loathing. This is what we called it. Now reducer, I guess. Let's check it. So we called it delete user, yeah. The loading and the error, we can say error delete. Okay, and now we can simply make the button disabled when the loading delete, right? So when we are loading, we will disable this button, and we will say deleting here when there is loading delete. Now we need to get this here on our props. So for example, here we can say loading delete, and we can say error delete. We can say delete user to get the function here. Okay, so now we have the error if something goes wrong, the function to actually delete it, and this function we want to run it when the user clicks on here. So when he clicks on delete button, right? So here we can say on click, and this will be a function callback. Execute this. Okay, the only thing left is to show the errors here somewhere. So I'm just going to copy this from here, and I'm going to paste it here after my buttons wrapper. Okay, and now this is not the error but the delete, but the error delete, and it will show if there is an error deleting. Okay, and this is position absolute, so I'm gonna make my buttons wrapper position relatives. So, okay, and this should be working, I guess. Let's see. So I'm logged in with my account with this email, and it's Fidalgo YouTube. So let's go to my here. It's this entry, and should be also gone from here. Should be also gone from here. So let's test it. We cancel, it works. When we click, it should disable the button, and also it should delete it. So disable deleting, and something went wrong, obviously. So delete fail, and the error is null because we didn't pass in the error. So delete fail and the payload error.message. Oh, I know why it failed. Because we need to log out and log in. It's a sensible action. This is a Firebase protection. Okay, but this is good because now we cannot actually style this this message. So we have this wrapper that is position relative, and then we have this that will be positioned accordingly to that. So we can just adding maybe rem. Okay. Actually, we could position it this. Okay, so let's remove position relative from here, and let's actually make the position relative. Oh, but this is fixed, so no problem. We can make an inside wrapper, right? So const inside wrapper. This will be a style.div, and just so I can have position relative here, and also I can remove the padding from here and paste it here. Everything else can stay here. Now here we simply wrap our children inside this. This is just so I can have position relative on the module here. So the message positions self absolute relative to this div. So okay, looks like working now. Position relative to this div, exactly. We can just make it maybe a little bit width. So width 100%. Oh, I knew I was missing something. So I need now width. I need this width 100%, and now I can move. No, I need to have this here, but I need to have the column, all of this here, because now this is parent wrapper. Okay, you can have this here too. Okay, delete. Okay. Now position relative to this. No, it's not. Wait, what? Why are you skewing? So position relative. This isn't technically perfect CSS here, but you'll have to do it. So let's go to our file, and in our message wrapper we can give padding here of 0 top and 3 to the bottom and to the sides, and we can say width %. Okay, and now we just need to push it up a bit. So bottom we can maybe say one rem, bottom, one rem, and here on the buttons wrapper I'm gonna say margin bottom, so 2 rem. Okay, just so it has some padding. Okay. Okay, this looks good to me. So okay, so now the message good, we cancel. Okay, let's actually also go to our modal, and not our modal. We have more spacing here than here because we gave that margin to the button, so this isn't technically again perfect, but this isn't about styling, so I'm just going to what can we do here? I'm just gonna style margin top to rem. Don't do this because it also doesn't work. Okay, whatever. So now we try to delete, we get that error here, and because we need to log in recently to do this, so let's log out, let's log in again, and let's see if our user is deleting. Account, delete my account. Let's go to our Redux to see the actions. Let's clean this up. Okay, so clean, delete start, and it deleted my account. It should be gone from here, and it's gone, and it should also be gone from here, and I don't think it was. Yeah, it was not gone from here. Why? Maybe because we are logging out here automatically. So then when we try to delete, try something. Let's change the order here. If it fixes, create an account. Okay, and now I need to verify my email. It's actually working, so test it now. Copy the link that I got email. Going to verify. Okay, now sign in. Okay, I can reload account. Now I should already have my user here. So where is? Let's make Fidalgo test. Okay, it's updating. So it's last one, and let's now delete my account. Okay, and now it's working now. So now we can sign in, sign up, log in, log out. We have protected routes. We force the user to verify his email. He can resend his email. We can edit our profile. We can delete our account. We can recover our password. So in my opinion, a pretty robust authentication system. One thing we can do now is improve our reducer, and we will do that now. And after that, we can start working on our to-dos. Let's make our reducer cleaner now, so we can go to our auth reducer. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a separate function to deal with each of these cases. So let's get started. Basically here, I'm going to create a new function, so I can say const auth start, and this gets the action, and it's a function that will then return this, basically, correct? So you can copy it and return this. This doesn't get the action, gets the state. Okay. And now auth end, auth fail. So we can say const auth and gets state and returns this. Okay, so now we can say const auth fail, and this one, since it needs the message that comes on the payload, right? What we can say is this gets access to the state and the payload, and this will return this, correct? So this we need to return here, so return. Okay, here true, return. So auth fail and auth success, so we can say const auth success, and this only gets the state, right? Because it doesn't need any message from our that we pass from our action. We can return and then verify start. So const verify start, and this only gets the state too, and it return this. And now verify success and returns this. So const verify success only gets the state too, and return this. Now verify fail, right? So go here, const fail, and this already gets the state and the payload, right? Because if it fails, we pass the message on the payload, and we return this, and this is a function. Okay, so verify fail. Now recovery start, so we can say const recovery start, and this only gets the state, so state, and this returns this. Now recovery success, so we can say const recovery success, and this only gets the state too, so the state, and returns this object. Now return a recovery fails, const recovery fail, and now here we already need the state and the payload, because if it fails, we will pass it a message, so it can change our error message. Recovery fail. Now we can say profile edit start, so const profile edit start, and this only gets the state, turn profile edit fails, so const profile edit fail, and this gets the state and the payload, and we turn this. Now profile edit fail, let's go to profile. Okay, profile edit success, right? Profile edit success, so const profile edit success, and this only gets the state, and we return this. File, profile edit start, profile edit file, and now we just need the delete account. So delete start, where here const delete start, and we get only the state. Turn. Okay, and now only one left, which is delete fail. Okay. So const delete fail, and this gets state and the payload, the function that will the function that will return. Okay, we don't need return. Wait, I copied the wrong thing, so delete fails, return this. So it return this. Okay, now it's good. Delete. And let's now use these functions. Okay, so these are helper functions, and we can say here helper functions. Now what we can do, instead of on our reducers here, instead of returning always this, we can just return auth start and pass it the state, and here we can return auth end and pass it state, and here we can return the auth fail and pass it the state and the payload, and here we can return auth success, so auth success, and pass it the state, and here we can delete this, and we can return verify start, and we pass it the state, and here we can return verify success and pass it to the state, and here we can return verify fail, and we verify fail, and we pass it to the state and the payload. Same here, we can return now the function, so recovery start, and we pass it to the state, and recovery success, and we pass in state. Here recovery fail, and we pass the state and the payload. Here profile edit start, we pass the state. Here profile edit success, we pass in the state. Here profile edit fail, we pass in the state and the payload. Here delete start, we pass the state. Here delete fail, we pass the state and the payload, and now you can see it's much cleaner. You can get to your reducer and see exactly what everything is doing, only one line of code, and you can go to the helper functions and see what's going on. And we also need one for the cleanup, so let's cut this and let's create here a new one called const cleanup, and this only gets the state and basically return this one. And now here we can run return the cleanup and pass it the state. Okay, and let's see if everything is working still. So log in, let's see if I can log in still. I delete this user, so let's sign up. Okay, signing up. Let me verify my email in a second. Okay, I verified my email. Let me reload. Okay, it's working. Edit my profile, dev. Okay, and everything seems to be working. So we have our app, the authentication side pretty much done now with a clean reducer. Let's now start working on our to-dos.